Aloha and hello. Welcome to Holy Matrimony. I'm James Fenimore. That's at James Fenimore _.
And I'm Trisha Fenimore. That's at Trisha Fenimore. You can find the show at Holy Matrimony __.
Today we're brought to you by Sex Ed Reclaimed. Have you ever wondered how to talk to your kids about sex but don't quite have the words? Sex Ed Reclaimed has you covered with age-appropriate content made just for your family. Get curriculum that covers all the hard topics from a faith-based worldview. Kristen Miele has educated tens of thousands of students in multiple countries to encourage organic conversations within families about a gift God has created. This education was made for such a time as this, so find your curriculum today at sexedreclaimed.com. All right, today's a big one.
It's a big one.
Today we're talking about emotional infidelity.
Yes.
So I think a great place to start here would be, what is emotional infidelity?
Yeah. So, all right. So first off, I know we're going to get some feedback that like, oh, this isn't infidelity or what is that, but when we talk about emotional infidelity, I think what we're really speaking about is intimacy sought from somebody else other than your spouse.
What is intimacy?
Like emotional connection, sharing of oneself, it's my opinion that when you're married, if you have a story like in your heart or like something that's happened to you that you want to share with somebody or some dream that you want to express, you should not go to a member of the opposite sex other than your spouse, or at the very least before your spouse. But like, a member of the opposite sex should not know more about you than your spouse does. Is that that's true? You think?
I think in most contexts, yes.
Okay, I'm sure that there are outliers,
The outlier would be like you work with somebody and they understand your position more than your spouse.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm talking about like emotional stuff.
Yes, but on the emotional side, I think you summed it up pretty nicely. I think we might have to get into a little bit more specifics for people that might be a little bit confused.
Right.
But the generality is, if you're seeking something from somebody else that you should be seeking from your spouse.
Bingo. Preach it.
That is emotional infidelity. Sure, I'll preach. Like if I decided to do a marriage podcast with another lass.
Who is she?
Exactly.
Where will I find her?
Take it easy. Take it easy. We don't need you
I don't have
repenting.
earrings on, but they would come off. My New Jersey would come out.
Oh, boy.
Then we're all in trouble.
I'm not doing another podcast. You'd see it.
Here's a good example. So let's say somebody works with a member of the opposite sex, which I'm sure we all do. But let's say you're having a problem in your marriage. If you go to that person of the opposite sex talking about a problem in your marriage, is it safe to assume that that's emotional infidelity?
So I think it depends. This is where it gets gray now.
Okay.
Okay? Because our next question we want to ask is, what's the difference between friendships and emotional infidelity?
Okay.
What is your purpose for going to this individual? Is it to help you navigate your marriage, to have a stronger and better marriage?
Yeah.
Because I think that's okay. Because sometimes, as a man, we're pretty dumb. And...
Really?
And, we don't really understand women, even
I'm
after
just
living with
kidding.
them for a long time. So we may want to seek out hey, my wife and I got in an argument. I want to get her a gift. Should I get her a new washer and dryer? Probably not. But it might take a
Especially me.
It might take a woman to let you know.
To be like, are you nuts?
Are you out of your mind? But so again, you're going to this woman to strengthen your marriage.
Yeah. I think wait, I want to interject because I think, would that same conversation happen in the same way if your spouse was there watching?
That's a really good.
Is that the ultimate litmus test?
That's a great litmus test, because the next thing I was going to say was, now if you are going there to complain about your husband or wife,
Yes.
if you're going there to hint that you're seeking something from
Get
someone
a sympathetic ear. Oh,
different,
you poor thing.
way different.
You poor misunderstood thing.
Yeah, I know. That'd be a foreign concept. Nah. But so what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
If your spouse was there, if your spouse could watch a recording back of this conversation,
would they be
okay with it?
Yeah.
So like if you saw me like going to a woman I worked with or a woman I'm friends with and being like, Trisha's been working really hard lately. She's been stressed. We've gotten into some arguments because I maybe haven't had like the most sympathetic ear to her. I really would like to do something nice for her. I'm thinking about doing X. What do you think? If you saw that back after I did X for you and said, well, so-and-so helped me with this idea, and you watched, you were like, that was a really sweet conversation.
But I think that you said it right there. You said, if I told you that she and I had a conversation, so like the communication, we talked about this with money. Anything done in secret, anything you're trying to keep from your spouse, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Like that's really, if you're willing to communicate about it, if you're willing to have it broadcast on a big screen and sit back and say, that's fine, then, I think that that's the test is, if your spouse knew all about it, would they be okay with it?
And I think that's a great place to start with what's the difference between friendships and emotional infidelity.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people are overly sensitive about, somebody being friends with the opposite sex. But I also think sometimes the person that's friends with the opposite sex might also not be honest about their intentions with being friends with this person.
Well, I think timelines matter. Were you friends with this person before you met your spouse? Or is this a new spontaneous friendship with a member of the opposite sex, which immediately pings I don't know, call me old fashioned, but it's like, I'm not in the market for new friendships with men. Being a married woman, like that's just not something I'm interested in.
No, well, I would take that one step further. We're not really in the market for new friends that aren't eventually going to be our friends.
That's exactly right. That's a great point.
If I'm at the office, not that I have a major office these days, but if I'm at the office and there's a new client or a new hire or something like that, and she, it's a female person, we get along, we have a lot of fun, we have a lot of laughs. I want to meet her husband.
Yes. That's
I want
the
her
ultimate
to meet
goal.
you. I want us to be friends.
Is that I become friends with her and you become friends with the husband.
Yes. I think there is a generational difference between previous generations where people can be a little bit more friendly with the opposite sex today than maybe 50 or 60 years ago.
You got to keep a finger on the pulse of it, though.
However,
keep it honest.
In this context, not in the context, I think that's more 50 years ago.
I think we could do a whole episode on friendships.
Yeah.
Because there's so much there.
So, and you know what? Maybe we will do that. I think we should. I think we should explore this a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way to put it. So really, your intent and your actions are the big difference between the friendships. We've talked about, you said timeline. Did you just meet them or was it an existing person? An existing friend that's been with you forever, yes, you shouldn't delete friendships.
Right.
But, back to intentionality, is this somebody you dated?
Oh, then absolutely,
and then when did you date them?
Well, if you were in fourth grade and you held hands.
If you were 15 years old and went on, to a dance together, okay.
But if it was like in college for 3 years, you probably shouldn't be friends with that person. I think when it comes to the difference between friendships and emotional infidelity, for me, what comes to mind are two units of measure. One is intention. Why are you going to them? And what feelings are aroused? Even if you're like, oh, I'm going there to, get their feedback. It's like, are you excited? Do you get that kind of, like you have anticipation, almost like a flirtatious excitement? Or, and then the second one is transparency, which we talked about. If your spouse was there watching, would it be okay?
Yeah.
I think that those are really the two. But I think that it's important to measure what's in your heart. I think so much of this begins in the heart, and Jesus talks about this. He talks about how murder begins in the heart. Infidelity, he said, like, if you even look at a woman with lust, you've committed infidelity in your heart. And it's like all these things begin in the heart. So, like, that's really the question. What's in your heart when we're going to these people?
Well, when you said, your how you like you get that excitement to go see, like, look, the difference between as a man getting pumped up because you get to go, see your boys and go golfing, or maybe go watch the game somewhere, and you're excited for it, you're looking forward to it, but you're not like have butterflies in your stomach, unless it's a game 7. But those butterflies are coming from somewhere else. but for real, like, you know the difference between looking forward to doing something with a friend and getting that
Yeah.
teenage excitement.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and if that's what's happening, time to probably throttle it back. But
Yeah.
we've been talking about emotional infidelity. I think another comparison we can make is, how is this compared to physical infidelity?
Well, I almost see it as, okay, look, obviously physical infidelity can occur outside of some big emotional attachment. In my experience, talking to couples who have experienced infidelity, most long-term infidelity, like we're talking like torrid love affairs, you know, the years long ones, begin as emotional infidelity.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not going to take a physical, you know, rendezvous and carry it out for 5 years. But if it started as emotional infidelity, then you've essentially built an entire relationship within the context of already having a relationship and a marriage.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, what stinks is, like, they say that the grass is green where you water it. And everything that we pour into somebody else is something that we're not pouring into our partner and our marriage. But I think that where it compares to physical infidelity is it is the precursor. And I've actually met people who have said that the emotional aspect is the hardest to overcome, because they almost said, like, you can almost not justify, but like you can almost be like, well, it was a physical thing. They were, you know, it was a moment of passion, but these big, long emotional stretches, then the partner is filled with doubt anytime the partner is even talking to somebody else, because that is how it started. And that was the most damaging, because it was like they sought an entire relationship outside of the marriage, not just one part of the relationship, which obviously the physical is egregious, and we'll talk about that in a whole other episode at some point.
I will say that the one benefit you have, if in comparing the two, is if it's emotional, you could still get it under control and stop it before it's too late.
Yes. Before the damage is too great.
Yes. You could still recognize what's going on. Maybe ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I seeking this? What's missing from my marriage that I'm seeking this third party for these feelings or these conversations or what have you? But you haven't gone nuclear yet, so to speak. You know, and you at least still have the opportunity to scale it back and end it and move on healthily with your wife or husband.
Yeah.
Whereas if there was physical intimacy, you've broken that bond completely.
Yeah.
And
that's going to be a whole other...
gone nuclear, so to speak. And that's a whole other issue that eventually we'll get into, because I know people have been asking about, you know, getting past physical infidelity.
Right.
But you're right. It's the beginning stages. It's the intro. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
But it's the beginning stages of this massive infidelity where I think you need to recognize when it's happening. Listen, sometimes it's happening without your knowledge. And
that's the thing. Sometimes we're all asleep at the wheel and unconscious, and the momentum of something. And that's why I think it's important that you delineated and you said, like, there's still time to stop it.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to wake up and recognize.
There's going to be a time where it becomes very obvious.
Yeah.
You know, like in the beginning, it might just be like, hey, I'm having these great conversations with this person at work. Or,
the trouble with trouble is it starts off as fun.
Always does.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like they get me. We laugh about all the same thing. And it's just like simple, harmless. And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, something big happens and you go to them.
Yeah.
Or you have a fight with your wife and you go to them, but not the way we were explaining it earlier.
Yeah.
Like, she just doesn't understand me. You know, no good. And you're already on that road.
Yeah,
but
you're sowing seeds for something that's going to be poison.
But there's time to backtrack. And there's time to recognize it. And there's time to end that relationship and go back to your wife.
I thought what was interesting before the show when we were talking is you were talking about, like, emotional cheating is really, like, you know, what were you saying about that?
So what happens is you cheat yourself and your spouse out of a great relationship because you only have so much to give. And if you're giving it to a third party, you're not giving it to this relationship. You're strengthening that relationship.
Yeah.
And by strengthening that relationship, you're weakening this one.
Yeah.
Totally not okay.
Yeah. Anytime. And it reminds me of high school chemistry, because I always heard this phrase,
covalent bonds.
I wouldn't know because I cheated my whole way through that class. And what I was going to say was, it was before I was a believer. Don't write in. I'm sorry. I repented. All right. But here's the lesson that I learned from a.
Did you?
I would always hear, when you cheat, you only cheat yourself. And it's like, I didn't really pay much attention because I'm like, I just want to pass the test. Like, it's not a big deal. But now, looking back, I see that. There are things that I wish I knew that I don't, and it's true. When you're cheating, you're only cheating yourself. And if you're watering the grass of another relationship, then you're cheating the relationship that you're in. You're cheating your marriage out of an honest shot if you're going to somebody else for something that you should be seeking your spouse for.
Well, if you're going to that person, if there's a reason. It's causing you comfort. It's causing you happiness. It's causing you excitement. It's causing you all these things. But you're taking that from here and putting it elsewhere.
So what can that do to a marriage?
It could destroy a marriage. Like, let's put it this way.
You're going to starve the marriage.
Well, you keep using this water the grass drought.
Yeah.
You only have one hose. So if I'm not watering this grass, what am I doing? I'm creating a drought.
Yes.
And the grass is dying.
Yeah.
But this grass is flourishing.
Yeah.
And not cool. Like, that is where you need to understand you only have so much attention. That's also why it's important to delineate between having a friend and having an emotional, because we all have friends. We could all give stuff to our friends.
Right.
But when we're giving stuff to our friends, we're not taking
You're
from
not depleting the marriage.
Exactly.
Hopefully it's to fortify the marriage if it's a great friendship.
Chances are you're depleting another friendship, honestly.
Well, and what was I going to say? Oh, bless. It's almost like you're starving. It is. It's the perfect analogy as the hose, is because if you're pouring into somebody else with emotional intimacy, then you're starving your relationship of that emotional intimacy. You're robbing your partner of the chance to fulfill that need in your life. And I think, one of the things we'll address here in a little bit is what needs to be addressed in the marriage if you're seeking outside relationships to fulfill something that should be fulfilled in the marriage. I mean, we can get to that later. I don't want to leapfrog anything.
Well, I do want to make one more specific point on this topic, because you have to also understand that this becomes a very compounding effect. It becomes a real slippery slope, because as you continue to deplete from this and add somewhere else, that this starts deteriorating, this will speed up. Because I'm seeking less and less from this, and I'm going there.
And at this point, maybe your spouse is going to start going elsewhere because they're not getting their needs met.
This is getting worse and worse. There's more arguments now. There's more complacency. There's more frustration. There's more negativity here.
Yeah, resentment.
So it's just going to push you further.
Yeah.
Your spouse isn't doing the pushing. It may feel in this emotional infidelity that your spouse is doing the pushing. They are not. You're creating an environment that's pushing yourself out.
But what is the environment that leads to somebody seeking outside, because I don't think look, obviously there's a time and a place for blame and accountability and responsibility, but I do always feel like even if it's 99% and 1%, I feel like anything within a relationship, there are 2 points and nobody is ever 100% to blame. What are the factors that have gone into a relationship that has fostered the environment where an emotionally unfaithful relationship can flourish? If we're focused every day, hopefully, on fulfilling our partner's needs and loving them, then hopefully we have such an airtight marriage. Now, that's not always realistic, but it's like, I just want to address that.
Let's go back to the lawn metaphor. If the lawn is your marriage and it's not being watered, your marriage is suffering, but so are each individual's needs. Right?
Yeah.
The need for that water.
The partner should speak up that they need water.
Instead of seeking it elsewhere, they should focus here. So all emotional infidelity, you're seeking something that you need, that you want.
Yeah.
Before doing it there, do it here.
Yes, and speak up. I think this is good for both partners, the one going outside of the marriage and the one being depleted. Because if we knew how to speak up for our needs, then so many of these entanglements wouldn't even exist. Because if this person spoke up and said, I want to feel close to you, then maybe that would do something. And if this person spoke up and said, I'm not feeling close to you, but I want to, then there's a union there. Then there's a conversation.
Look,
and room for growth.
I'm gonna say something that's gonna be pretty controversial, but the fact is, in a relationship, if somebody's expressing real legitimate needs, especially on an emotional level that they need from their partner, and they're not getting it, and they've tried and tried and tried and tried, if they seek that emotional, connection out afterwards, I don't want to say it's not their fault, but there is some justification there.
But that's what I want to seek to end, is this idea that like whoever does the acting out is 100% to blame and the other person 0%. And I'm not like victim blame. I'm not doing any of this. I'm just saying you're in a relationship and it's a team, and whatever goes on, we need clear eyes and an honest perspective on what actually happened.
Yeah,
and I think you're right. If you came to me and said, Trisha, I'm not getting my emotional needs fixed, and I'm on my phone and I'm shopping on Amazon or I'm scrolling Facebook or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, okay, that's nice. I'll talk to you tomorrow after, it's like, what are the, like.
You're, like I said, you're not 100. You're not listening. You're not absolved. You're still in the marriage.
Right, of course.
But you're also, in your mind, not cheating. You're not doing anything physical.
Tried.
And you're not doing anything physical. You're just looking for emotional respect and emotional, vision and seeing and being seen.
Yeah.
And looking for connection. You have a friend. That's how you're going to look at it.
Yeah.
You have a friend. Now, this friend might be crossing a line, but you were seeking that out and you weren't getting it. So it goes back to really what you said in the beginning and what you have said in all of these episodes. Communication is key, and being open and hearing each other about these needs is so important, but also responding to them. Mm-hmm. And hearing that person and saying, okay, I understand what you need, and trying. Because I can assure you, if the other person starts trying, that will delay this. Even if they're not succeeding, if they're trying, that will delay this for a long time.
Yeah. Like if they set a reminder on their phone at 6:30 every night to like ask your spouse how your day went, like at least they're trying.
Or you're on your phone and then they start talking, you realize you're on your phone. Okay, now I'll put my phone down.
Sorry about that. That was rude.
I'll be attentive.
Right.
Because this is a hard habit. We all have this to a degree. It's a hard habit to pick that phone up. But as long as you know to set it down and let me now have a real connection and conversation. These are ways that you can, fix that. So I just want to be very clear that what you said is super important. It's not. It's almost never one side's fault or the other in emotional, infidelity, but. Somebody usually does hold a little more weight, but it doesn't matter because the whole purpose of it is for this to be strong and stay strong and be successful. So communication is absolutely probably the most important part of it.
And I think, what springs to mind is our in-laws episode where you said if there is a problem for one person in the relationship, it's a problem in the relationship. And if somebody comes to their spouse and says, I'm having this problem, I want to feel connected to you, I need more emotional closeness, and the other partner just shuts it down and denies it and doesn't want to hear it because it might be inconvenient, then there is a deeper problem in that relationship that I would suspect has been much more long-standing.
Without a doubt. But to kind of wrap this and remind everybody, which the most important thing is, it's not too late.
Yeah.
If you find yourself, if you hear this and you're like, I didn't even know I was doing this, because that is common.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know I was doing this, but I am. It's not too late to sever those ties and focus all that attention and what you were seeking out back in the marriage, because that is how you're going to grow together. That's how you're going to have a happy life, and you're going to look forward to being with your spouse.
If somebody is in an emotionally intimate relationship right now and they're married, how do they get out of it?
I mean, I think. See, it gets awkward because a lot of these things do take place in the workplace.
Right.
It's not like it's the counter girl or barista. Is that the male version of a barista?
I didn't know it was a gendered term. I guess everything's gendered nowadays, so I don't even know.
At a coffee shop where you could just say,
a barista.
A barista.
That's the gender neutral term.
At least there it's pretty easy. You just go to another coffee shop. But if it's somebody you work with, it is difficult. So, having that severed conversation might be awkward in that scenario.
I was going to say.
I think you just slowly start pulling back.
I once had a mentor. I came to them about a friendship that wasn't where it was this friendship, and it felt like no matter what, it would always devolve into gossip. And I kept trying to make it not so, but then it just would. And I finally reached the point where I was like, I gotta get out of this friendship. And a mentor told me, you don't need to have some big slam the door, I'm leaving conversation. Just lean out quietly and keep leaning out. And I feel like in most circumstances that's best, especially with a work thing. Like, look, if it's not at work, then maybe there's a conversation where it's like, you know what, I'm married, this isn't, but like in work where you're going to have to see them every day, it's going to be uncomfortable, but I feel like a conversation would almost be more
dramatic.
Yeah. And ultimately, you can't focus on what's best for that person. You have to focus on what's best for your spouse and your marriage. And is it some big, heartfelt, intimate conversation with that person where you're basically breaking up with them? Probably not. Yeah, like, I don't think your spouse would appreciate that if they were in the room. Yeah, I think it's just slowly leaning out, making it clear that you are no longer interested in having that type of relationship with the person.
Yeah.
And just fade into the mist.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing. Just slowly back out, maybe keep it more on the surface, more professional, more about work. How's your weekend? Good? Mine was good too. Great. How's that report coming? Things like that.
I got to get back. I got a meeting.
Yeah. So I think that's the best way to go about that. If it's obviously something else, a conversation might have to happen. Or you just, like I said, if it's a coffee shop person or something, you just, start going to another coffee shop. Like it could be that simple.
Yeah.
So, but different areas. So if you have something specific that you're struggling with, please DM us or comment, whatever you want to do. Get in touch with us. I'd be more than happy to help you through that. Conflict resolution with relationships is one of my specialties.
That's true. He gets a lot of practice at home. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I cause most of it, though.
Recognition that there's a problem is the first step in solving the problem.
Anyway, I think now's a good time to get to our Answer the Internet.
Yes.
So we have a good one today. So here we go. Hi, James and Trisha. My husband and I both have demanding careers, and we're finding it challenging to balance work and our relationship. We often feel disconnected and exhausted. We don't have any children yet, so that isn't an issue. Do you have any tips for maintaining a healthy marriage while managing these busy work schedules?
Well, first of all, of course they don't have kids. They don't have time to, probably they don't have time to make the kids.
But
I couldn't resist. No, in all seriousness, I'm really sorry that this is the circumstance you guys find each other in, because I had a job in Soho where I was working. We were living out on Long Island, and I was working down in Soho in New York City, and the commute every day was something close to like 4 hours total, and I would come home as just like a blob of a person. I started getting health issues, like I had to leave that job, but like I totally get this, and my heart goes out to both of you because I understand the physical toll and the taxing, like how taxed you are from something like that.
So when you have, the good news is you both have it.
Yes.
This would be a lot more difficult if only one of you had it, which is a common problem.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot more empathetic and understanding.
Yeah, you both understand that you're both working.
And they can work together. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, please, come on. This isn't working together. No, you're both working, so you both understand the scenario. If one of you is stay at home or just had like a typical 9 to 5, it's a lot less understanding. It's a lot harder to have that empathy. So that's the good news. The bad news is you're both working all the time. So even if one of you gets a day off, it doesn't mean the other one can now enjoy that with you.
Yeah.
So it's not even like you could take, okay, on Fridays I'm gonna negotiate leaving a little early or whatever. It doesn't matter because the other person's working. So what you really need to do is prioritize your time together, and I think that's crucial. So if you have weekends off, which you probably do, I would say make sure you are prioritizing doing things together. If your husband likes to golf or you like to golf, maybe that's something you either do together or you don't do at all, because that's a big time crunch on a weekend if you only have Saturday and Sunday together. Mm-hmm. So prioritize being together in those opportunities that you have. Planning. That's big, right? We work Monday through Friday. We both work 11-hour days. We get home, we're exhausted. We're heating up leftovers or whatever because we don't have time to cook. Okay, Friday night, we're tired, so we're going to do a movie night on the couch.
That's sweet.
We're going to order a pizza or we're going to order some sushi or whatever your favorite food is. And that's what we're going to do on Friday nights. We're too tired to cook.
We don't even want to go out.
We don't want to go out because we're tired. So let's do a movie night or let's do a game night or whatever.
Yeah.
Just do something together in the house that you can look forward to. Maybe it's make a baby, according to my wife, because she thinks you don't have time for that.
Wow.
But then have a plan for Saturday.
Yeah.
You
could make a baby
together.
again.
One track mind. One track mind.
I would.
But have a plan for Saturday.
I would also say we should have a conversation about healthy work boundaries. Is your job demanding because you're like a surgeon who's on call? Or is your work demanding because you work for somebody who doesn't respect your off hours in a reasonable way? Like, look, I'm not one of these people. I'm not one of these millennials who's like, nobody should reach out to me after office hours. Like, that's just not realistic. And that's not, part of being a team. But it's also like, does your employer feel entitled to time which is not theirs? Like if you're on vacation with your family, are they calling you every day with emergencies that you need, fires that you need to put out? And if that's the case, then maybe that's not the best employer for you long term. You want an employer who has a symbiotic, I don't know what the word symbiotic means, but it feels like the right word here, relationship where they respect your time and you respect theirs. You give them your all when you're theirs, and they let you give your all elsewhere when the time is not theirs.
Yeah, like if you're at home and they're calling you or they're emailing you and they expect you to respond at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night.
Right. If they're calling you at 7:30, there should be a disclaimer of like, hey, so sorry to bother you. We had something come up. I know you're,
That's fine.
Right?
And I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. But also in this context, it sounds like they're demanding careers or something they both want. So I would like to focus on the time we know that they're going to have together.
Yeah.
Because listen, if they're young in their careers and they're trying to prove themselves and get
That's
ahead,
true.
like I know people that worked insane hours until they were like 28 years old out of college, and then now they have the freedom to travel and do whatever they want. So if that's the goal here, totally understand it. I respect it.
That's a good point.
So you'll have that time. So now you need to prioritize the time that you do have, which might not be much, but it needs to be prioritized. If you guys wake up in the morning together at the same time to go to work, maybe wake up 10 minutes earlier and have breakfast together, or have a cup of coffee together or whatever. Like find those little moments when you can pray together.
Yeah.
Find those little moments when you can during the work week and then prioritize the weekend and those holidays with planning. Don't wake up on a Saturday and say, what do you want to do today? Because,
no one's going to feel like doing something.
Yeah.
That's why canceling plans, it feels so good, is because no one ever feels like doing anything. On the topic of little moments, I mean, I remember when you were working in the city and I was working in the city, sometimes I would leave you little notes in your briefcase. And then he'd go to work and he'd find these little notes or something like that. Or if I went away on a business trip, I would leave like little notes around the house for when I was gone. You couldn't get away from me.
Yeah. She found me.
I'll find you, like in Wedding Crashers.
Favorite movie.
That's why it's my favorite movie. But I think that making little moments sweet, it doesn't take that much time for somebody to run into a little convenience store and pick up a $5 bouquet of flowers. Well, it's probably $10 now in this economy. But in any event, it's an extra 3 minutes out of your way to go home, and yet to show your partner that you were thinking of them. To write a little note and stick it on the bathroom mirror for your partner to see in the morning before they leave for work takes all of 60 seconds. Yeah, but it lets them know that you're thinking about them and prioritizing them. And I don't think we should neglect those little micro moments.
No, not at all. I think that's a great way to keep connecting throughout the day when you can,
and sending little memes. What did you just send me? Where it's like
they refer to this as pebbling now.
Because penguins do it.
Penguins do it.
Bring little pebbles to each other, and that's...
It lets you know you're thinking of them. You had this happy moment alone, and you wanted to share it with somebody you love.
So you send the meme to the person that you're in a relationship with. You send the funny joke to them.
Yeah, the problem is you do them all at once, and I open my phone and I have 17, and I can't watch them all.
I think of you a lot, and you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So good luck. Please let us know how it's going. If you have any more questions on this, please email us or DM us. But I think that's it for today.
That's it.
I'm James Fenimore. That's at James Fenimore _.
And I'm Trisha Fenimore. That's at Trisha Fenimore. And you can find the show at holymatrimony ___.
We'll see you next time.